Father, thank you for this day you gave us. Thank you for all the blessings we have through your Son. Father, just thank you for our county and our employees. Thank you for our public safety that watches over our county each day. Thank you for the men and women fighting for our freedom that we might stand here today and do the county's work. Father, as we go through this day, everything we do and say may it be pleasing to you, and may we, as commissioners, do what's best for Henry County. And just give us the wisdom to say and do the right thing, because we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is a special meeting of the Henry County Board of County Commissioners being held on Wednesday, June 26, 2019 at 5:10 p.m. in the County Commission Chambers in LaBelle, Florida. In attendance are Chairman Mitchell Wills, Vice Chair Emma Byrd, Commissioner Darrell Harris, Commissioner Michael Swindle, Commissioner Carson Turner, County Administrator Jennifer Davis, Attorney Ed Dion, Deputy Clerk Kim Barano.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you coming over to fill in today. I know it's kind of a drive for you, but we appreciate it very much. As we begin this meeting, this is a meeting to take a look at our insurance program that we had talked about last Tuesday night. So the first thing we need is a motion to rescind.
I make a motion to rescind the motion from the last meeting on the insurance issue.
Second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. Mr. Harris, motion by Mr. Harris, second by Commissioner Swindle. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll need a motion to open discussion. Is this correct?
I'll make a motion to go out for bid on our insurance
I think it's
Second the motion.
for discussion.
for discussion. Okay. Got a motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. Is there any other discussion on this so far? We kind of need, are we going out to bid? That's what the motion said. Are we going to go out to bid or are we going to discuss this? Did everyone hear the motion clearly?
No, my motion is to go out for bid.
My second is that we go out to bid.
Okay, good enough. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I believe that's the only business we had. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the constitutional officers, Ms. Butler, regardless of how the bids come back, do you anticipate that you're going to implement a long-term wellness plan? Are we going to engage in a long-term approach to try to beat these numbers down?
For the record, Barbara Butler, Clerk of the Circuit Court. Carson, I don't see why not. I don't see why we can't have a win-win on both sides. You know, I don't see why, we couldn't try to implement something like that. But I'm all for going out and seeing, what's it going to cost us, $100 to the county? Let's see what the bids are, and let's see what they come back with. And let's see if they have a wellness plan. Let's look at all the options and then come back and discuss it with the constitutional officers. Instead, we didn't know anything. It was a presentation by United was on the agenda. We had no clue of what was going to happen, or we would all been at the last meeting. I came back from Orlando tonight just for this, because we got a clerk's conference going on. I was very disappointed that we didn't go out for an RFP. I think that we owe it to our employees. I think we owe it to the constituents of this county. Because as comptroller, I don't think that an increase of that magnitude, without going out and trying to get everything at rock bottom prices, is good for the county.
You do know, Ms. Butler, that we've had increases greater than this and not gone out to bid in years previous.
You went out for a bid for a lot less increase the last time.
No, ma'am, that's actually incorrect. We went out to bid because of the performance and the fact that the cost was going up exorbitantly every year.
Well, we're not satisfied not only with performance, but with coverage.
Okay.
And I cannot stand here and look at my employees and say, this is what it is, this is where we're gonna stay, this is what it's costing us, the county, and not say we didn't try our best.
Okay. I do think that the board, I don't know if we agreed to this from a standpoint budgetarily to put it into motion, but as it related to the $400,000 increase or 16% increase, whichever way you want to look at it, it was a good discussion, and I thought that we were going to look at trying to implement some sort of a program to where we were going to buy that down moving forward.
Well,
You know.
let's look at all the options.
No, I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's my thing.
I
Just
just-
look at it all.
I just want
You
to
know.
make sure that saying we're going to implement a long-term plan, having an insurance committee, and actually engaging that are all being carried through. Because I know that we've had an insurance committee in years past. I know that when we did this back in 2010 or maybe it was 11, and Ms. Davis tells me that it was also because of a full-time employee decrease overall. That's a huge reason why that number came down. But I remember public risk management pulled back almost $500,000 as it relates to that cost from a health insurance standpoint. And I do feel that was because, you remember, Ernie Reddish, Tricia Arnold, there was a herd of humans that got together.
But
I
that
remember the
wasn't
little
health
guy from
insurance. That
LaBelle.
that was overall coverage for the county.
No, it was health insurance as well. It was
Well,
health insurance. It was $1 million
Yeah,
decrease
but it-
with
but it-
health and general liability.
But
And
it
so
was
the-
a lot to do with the overall coverage of the county, is what I remember.
No, it was both. It was almost an even split, and I had the numbers to show that, but we don't need to get into that right now. But I do want us to look at that. You know, we had two graphs that were presented at the last board meeting that showed a long-term approach to two counties, Taylor being a little bit smaller than us, Hardy being almost matching us like for like demographically, and those graphs showed that they've implemented a long-term strategy, they've implemented a health savings account. And the county, I believe in Hardee County's case, is actually contributing to that health savings account. And that, in turn, is buying down the cost of insurance on a yearly basis. And I just think that Henry County needs to be moving towards these aggressive kinds of thoughts. Because this is what every private business in America is doing right now. State of Florida implemented it. I looked at the graph that you sent us today with telemedicine. I think that's being received well if you look at the numbers. And, that's the way medicine is moving. And out here in the
my
boondocks,
thing-
that's what we're going to have to do.
My thing is with the insurance is for the increase that they want from us and the coverage that we have and the service that we get, and for when we go, if I go to a doctor and he tells me, and I have my life's in his hands, and he said, you need to have this, this, and this done. I don't want the insurance company to come back and say, oh, no, you can have this done, but not this. They're not my doctor. And the same thing on dentist. If they say I need a crown, I don't want the insurance company to come back and say, you can have a filling, but not a crown.
Well, then we have to work through this, because I'm going to tell you, I can give you two examples anecdotally, but I would actually be willing to show this to you on paper if you want me to come to your office and show you. But this is not county business, but this is just me taking my private life and implementing this into being a fiscal conservative of the county's tax dollars, just as you are. But we had an employee at Quality Electric that broke 2 teeth pulling wire with a pair of clients. The dentist wanted to take out all 6. The second dentist wanted to remove every tooth in his head because he had a condition where a bunch of them were bad. You may say, Carson, that's an exaggeration. I can show it to you. It's a $26,000 bill, but they saw that we had good insurance. They said, this is what you need to do. The insurance company said, no, we're not going to allow that to occur. We have to get another opinion. We ended up taking him to another specialist. And what I'm saying to that is, when a physician, and maybe this is going to upset some physicians, but when a physician sees an insurance plan that is rich, they take advantage of that. And if you go back and look through our historical numbers, I think that has occurred. And so we have to pull these things. And this is going to take everyone. I'm happy to see this many employees for Henry County in here, because it's going to take every one of us to work to this process and try to pull these numbers into check.
Okay, let me tell you this, Carson. When we went with United, and I'll have to say, and I was sitting there with Darren, and I said, prescriptions, are they going to be like for like? I said, okay. Mine used to be $70 for 90 days. I pay $150. I'm not the only one in this room. And I went back and talked to United about it. I'm sorry, but we can't meet it.
Yeah.
You know. Well, it's not like for like then.
And that's
So-
what we're gonna do. We're gonna go out and look at this. The long-term plan, the graph did show that works. What you're discussing now, the long-term plan of that. And that's something regardless who we go with, if we stay
Right.
with United or whoever comes in.
Let's look at it all. It's not gonna
Right.
cost us
It's not
anything.
gonna hurt a thing to look, because what it did show, the graph did show savings in that plan, regardless of who it is. If whether
Mm-hmm. I don't
it was
care who it
United,
is, as long as it
Whatever
works.
the case may be. So that is the wellness and the long-term strategy we do need to look at, I believe, as well. I think that's gonna benefit not only the county as far as cost, but it's gonna benefit the employees as well. So I believe that'll be a plus there.
I think we need to look at it all.
But, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, in all of my discussions, money has never came up, like the 16%, none of that's ever came up. Only thing that comes up is the performance. You know, everybody is paying 50 to 60, not everybody, but I am and she is, like more a month for prescription drugs. When this one lady went to the dentist and she just needed something done, they said no. One lady found out that we wasn't gonna keep, was gonna keep the same coverage, where she started crying. And so it's more about performance, I think, than anything else. Because I know that our last coverage we had with Blue Shield, or whatever it was, anyway, you never heard a word about nothing. You can talk to human resource, they never got one complaint, one nothing about anything. And so to me, I'd rather pay a little bit more and have the performance, the main thing. And so nobody's really hollering about the money deal.
Okay. As far as speakers, how are we gonna handle that? Do you wanna do a 3-minute speak? How are we gonna do that? We got a couple that's raised their hand and wants to speak, so do we need to fill out a card, or how do we need to do this?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to know from Ms. Pittman and Ms. Langford, are y'all good with the long-term approach as well of trying to implement a wellness plan?
You wanna go through the constitutionals first? Would any of you like to address
That's the one,
this?
too, I'd like to talk.
Who are we missing? Ms. Hoots, is she in here?
I thought I seen her walk in.
Okay.
And for the record, Dina Pittman, property appraiser. The long-term wellness plan is a great idea. I don't think that that's the issue that we're arguing right now. I believe the issues, as Mr. Harris pointed out, is the cost that we're paying versus the service we're getting. And upon agreeing or recommending United to the board as our new insurance plan or provider, we were basically informed that it would be a pretty much seamless transition. And it seemed like daily there were issues that were coming up. I'm not getting coverage for this. They won't cover this prescription. It's the generic, and they still won't cover it. I can get it, but it's 20, 30, 40, double what I've been paying. And I think the issue is, like it's been pointed out, it's the services that are provided that aren't equal to the cost. And I'm one to say, I'll pay $50 for a steak, but don't give me a hot dog and call it a steak. And I feel when we were in the bidding, and we know it's a risk, we were pretty much promised the steak for nearly the same cost as what we were paying last year. And the steak didn't come through. We have, and I feel bad for Jamie Ledford. She's the one that gets the calls daily, multiple calls. I wouldn't want her job. The services aren't there. The provider is not meeting our standards of what we expected. We know when there's a transition, you're going to have bumps in the road. That's expected in anything, but not hurdles that you can't jump. And when services are denied or advised, we're not going to cover that, we'll do, I mean, I know that's a unique situation with the dentist, but we'll do this, and this, and now the employees have to keep going back for a second, third, fourth opinion, or go back to the doctor a month later, so now they're losing pay. They're paying for the doctor, probably more than what they were paying before. The prescriptions, if they're getting them, are probably more than what they were paying before. It's not, to me, it's not worth taking the increase and not even looking around. I just don't think that as a constitutional officer, as elected officials, we're not getting the bang for our buck. And I believe it's our due diligence to treat, one, our employees, because most of the time that's why they come, it's the benefits. And when the benefits are going down the tubes, the employees go down the tubes. And I believe it's our responsibility to treat our employees, one, with utmost respect, two, provide them with the best services we can possibly provide. And if you're not shopping around, you're not doing that. But yes, long-term wellness, to answer your original question, I think it's a great idea.
We have to change ourselves actuarially. You know,
Right,
we have to
and that's
make
with
ourselves look
that's
better
with
on
any
paper.
insurance company, that's with anything. But I'm one to believe that if any one of you got a phone call from any service that you, whether it's maid service, lawn service, car wash service, hey, we're going up 16% or a large chunk of money, you're not going to shop around. I venture to say everyone is going to shop around. And I think it's our due diligence to do that.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hoots, Mr. Langford, yeah, Pat?
I have no problem with the wellness program. If that's what the county thinks is best for us, we'll be glad to look at that. What I do have a problem with, first, I want to thank y'all for what you do. You do great things for the county. I know this is an awkward situation, but when I was on the school board for 20 years, if something cost $80,000 and it's going up over $400,000 the next year, it's going out for bids. I think we owe that to our people. And I know about the less service we have, because I had Blue Cross and Blue Shield forever. I never had any problem with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, none. We have had, even my wife and me has had it, just like our employees. And I agree with that, but the money comes into play too. There's some people in this room that their insurance is a big reason they're working for the county. And our employees are the utmost importance to us. And some of them work in my office. And I just, the only thing I can say is I think we dropped the ball by going up from 80. You wanted to have a bid because they went up 80. I don't know why that is. You wanted it to go out for bid. And now it's going up over 400, and it wasn't going out for bids. And back to you, Carson, the wellness program's a great idea. I understand that, but anytime we have an increase on our employees like this, it needs to go out for bids. And when you know something like this is going to happen, the constitutional officers ought to know about it, so we can definitely get to a meeting and hear the reason that it's going up, so we can explain it to our employees. We didn't hear anything about this until after the fact. But other than that, I appreciate what you do, and that's our opinion. Thank you.
That's a,
Thank
and
you, sir.
Mr. Langford makes a good point. That's a great point Mr. Langford made, and I would like to add to it. And as we go out to the RFP, I would respectfully request that we make that date, because it also got unveiled to us at a very tight frame as well, that we make sure that we get the renewal in time enough for us and all of our valued employees to look at it to make sure that it is the best plan as we move forward, because there was just not time for us to even dig into it ourselves.
It's going to come every year.
We have a time frame. The RFP is ready, depending on your decision tonight to go. It is going to be a very quick time frame. You'll remember last year we have to have an insurance committee, which is made up of the constitutionals, so they will be involved in the entire process.
Well, and I don't mean necessarily just this one. I'm talking about in
Right.
10 months from now.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that in the RFP, let's write that we get the renewal information 30, 45 days early, so that we and the valued folks in this room can look at it to decide before we have to do it in real time.
In so many ways, it's a poor excuse that we did not have the opportunity, but you all had the right to speak on, and you didn't get that neither, so we appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Hello, for the record, Brenda Hoots, Supervisor of Elections. And again, thank you for reconsidering this. And I'll try not to repeat all the issues that were already said, but as we've talked about, the cost for prescriptions going up, We gave them raises the last couple of years, 3% cost of living increase. That's basically been eaten up plus more with their prescriptions this past year. There's so many, they were either told that they had to switch, that they couldn't take that because it wasn't covered under that tier and cost. So some of mine have gone outside the plan. They don't even use their prescription because they can get it cheaper outside the plan than they can using their insurance. And I think that sounds completely like that's why you have insurance. But to be able to go outside the plan and get your medicine cheaper is shocking to me. A wellness plan is great. We've been on this insurance for a year. Do we have any earmarks that we've done to implement a wellness program? Wasn't that part of this package?
What did you ask? Was that? Is that what you?
Yes.
She did, she asked, yeah.
Well, that kind of, Ms. Hoots, what you're saying is exactly to what Commissioner Swindle, what you just said. We had an insurance committee. There was a representative from each constitutional.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that committee not meet anymore? That committee should, I mean, what, can I get an update on that? Because to me, that should be a direct link to Jamie/Albritton Insurance as our people, and I'd love to know what that status
As far
is.
as the
And or a
insurance committee,
representative from-
we met and we had to cancel one meeting and then another one was never scheduled.
Let me put my 2 cents worth in there because it wasn't all Jennifer's fault because she didn't call another one. The last meeting I went to, it's usually a couple hours is what it is. And I think Commissioner Harris, she was there with us, and they was trying to explain to us how they compute the insurance. I don't need to know that. I could care less. I need to know how much it's going to cost me, how much it's going to cost my employee, and what coverage we have. And I told Jennifer at that meeting, I said, look, if this is what they want to talk about, I don't have time. I need to be in my office. And I think Pat and Dean was there too. I don't need to hear that.
So Ms. Pittman, Mr. Langford, y'all agree with that statement?
I agree with the statement. We don't need to waste 2 hours of time listening to how they do business.
No,
but-
that's we need to know the bottom line, Carson.
No, ma'am. Mr. Chair, this is the fundamental issue right here, I think, as we relate. And if y'all disagree, please let's have a debate. But we have to know, I think, what's happening in those insurance discussions. And I think that maybe this needs to turn into a health fair, where the county just buys a half a day of overhead for everybody. And then instead of it being you that's carrying that message to all of your employees in the clerk of court's office, all of your employees and the supervisors and so on and so forth, then it needs to be the insurance company coming here, and we're at the Civic Center and we feed, and then we put it all up there on a PowerPoint presentation. Because I think if you had this large of a mass of humanity in the Civic Center and in the John Boy Auditorium, and they were able to share their frustrations with any of these plans and any of these programs, and then also understand how we arrive at, because I'm going to tell you, Ms. Butler, I never had insurance until I got my third job.
And Carson,
Hold on, let me, please,
wait a
Ms.
minute.
Butler, for 1 second. I didn't have insurance. And so I didn't understand that when you go to an emergency room, there's 3 bills associated with that.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't understand that if I had insurance, it made, the tier process and the fact of generics and all that. I didn't understand any of that. I was blissfully ignorant. Now, I'm not calling anyone in here ignorant, but I am saying that as you get educated to that process and you understand that we could pay for you to go to Med Express, or we could pay for you to go to your family practitioner. And if there's not a bone sticking out and blood shooting, we probably don't need you to go to the ER, and we need to encourage that type of thing.
You missed my point. They're
No, your
talking about
point-
how the insurance company gets their figures. I don't care. How the state controls them and all this. We don't care about that. We care about what it's going to cost us, what the coverage is, and that sort of thing. We don't care. Nationwide gets their figures from so-and-so and so-and-so, and then they come, all these insurance pools. We don't care about none of that, Carson. We don't have time to learn that.
I believe-
That's something that Jennifer might be interested in.
Let me jump in.
But not me.
I believe these things are, situations that can be handled with electronics we have today. That's something that can be sent via email to each constitutional officer.
True.
This is how we do our plan. There's meetings I sit in. I don't want to hear I could care less. I know in the first 5 minutes.
I'm asleep.
And I agree with that. We do need to be educated on what we're doing. That's the reason I sat here. I try to educate myself before I ever sat behind this diocese. But there's times when the possibilities of that happening are very frustrating. First 10 minutes, you've shut down. So this is something in the future we can look at. These meetings, if we have a board when we come together as a board, we have the information prior to coming together.
Right.
Same situation with that. They don't need to come together and sit there and learn how the wheel's put together. It doesn't matter.
No.
Just tell me what the wheel's going to function, what it's going to operate, how it's going to benefit me, how it's going to take away from me. So I do agree with that part of it. There is a component where we need to understand how they do what they do. As a board, that way you make the right decisions. That's the reason we make the decisions we try to make up here. Are we always right? Absolutely not. That's why there's 5 of us. Or sometimes I may have a bad idea. Ms. Bird may fix it. So moving forward, in the meetings, I understand, but this would be a situation I would say, this is what I want in that meeting. I would lay out a plan. This is what I'd like to hear. This is what I'd like to see. If you have something you feel that's pertinent to this, then you send it to me via email, so I'm not wasting Ms. Hoot's time.
Right.
I'm not wasting Mr. Langford's time. This is information that, and the commissioners do the same. We do our own homework. So maybe something that we don't need 2 hours to explain how it works. We just need you to come in, lay it out,
Right.
and let us go forth.
Right.
So that's
We don't
kinda-
need that other.
Ms. Davis.
If I may, so there's a delineation between the insurance committee and then a wellness committee. So a wellness
Right.
committee is what we were working towards to try to get representatives from our departments and our constitutional officers so they could buy into a long-term strategy. And so regardless of what you all decide and what you all do, no matter what provider we have, it's real important that we all buy into a wellness strategy. So the national trend, correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, I think it's 8% a year about. So insurance costs in general go up right now, about 8% every year. So everybody, if we were break even on a loss ratio, we would still be expecting about an 8% increase every year. And that's a lot. That's a lot for everyone. And so the long-term strategy is if we can get our loss ratios down, if we start using urgent clinics, if we start using doctors on demand when it's feasible, instead of using an ER or something like that, we can bring our loss ratio down. And so we might get a 5% or a 4% renewal, no matter who we're with. And so I think if we all work together and we all buy into that long-term strategy, regardless of who our provider is, I think we can all work together and save ourselves money and the taxpayers money. And I believe I believe, Commissioner Turner, that's what you're striving.
I think we've discussed that.
Yeah,
That's what
and I
we
think
want.
that's what everybody wants. And so that's what we need to do.
That's the common goal. Let's
Right.
save the taxpayers' dollars, and let's
Yes.
get our employees the best that we can.
Right.
So the-
And Mr. Chair, that's one of the things we talked about, was to educate them, because sometimes they just don't know. And it's our job to educate them so they can help them make the right decisions. But I think that we did look at what you wanted, we heard what you said, and I think that we need to take it out to bid like we are doing now, so.
And the wellness is a different subject.
Yeah, Jennifer.
And the long-term
Right,
strategy is
right.
different.
Strategy.
On the wellness, is that totally left up to the county?
We can make it what we want to make it. So
But is it 100% us as a county doing it?
well, it could be a combination of both, I think.
I mean, but why wouldn't the insurance company
Well,
be involved in doing
they
that?
do. So, for example, a previous provider has a wellness benefit. Our current provider has a wellness program. Sometimes it's a mix and blend. They do so much, and then internally within your organization, you kind of go over and beyond and try to engage your employees and do even more.
Because they're going to save money in the long run, too.
Right. So everybody stands to save with a wellness program. And so that's our goal,
But I think if we
regardless.
look at all of it, it's not going to cost us anything. We look at all of it.
Okay.
So,
We had one other
Okay.
person that wanted to speak. Patty, you still want to talk, or
I got one.
you, Mr. Harris, you got one too? Okay.
Roger Greer.
If you, let Ms. Hooch, are you done, or?
Miss Greer.
You can come back if you want to. Mr. Harris is buying dinner tonight, so we got time.
Miss Greer.
Ms. Greer?
Miss Greer.
It's been covered, you've already
Okay.
discussed.
Okay,
the
then.
problems.
You stay right there.
You, Patty? If you,
Well, I was just going to.
you have to come up here, dear. You gotta sing into the mic. Yeah.
Patty George, clerk of court, deputy clerk with the clerk of courts. Actually, all I was going to do was disagree with Mr. Harris when he said that it's not about the money, because
I did
as
too.
far as everything I heard coming from whispers behind me, it is very much about the money. Our county, we get paid very little for what we do.
No.
And it's hard to get employees and keep employees, keep good employees with what we are making. And one of the things that we put out there to try to get quality employees is that we've got great insurance benefits.
Right.
Well, when you can't afford the insurance benefits and you're only paying not much more than $1 or so an hour more than a fast food joint, what kind of employees are we supposed to get?
Yeah. Okay.
And how are we going to keep them?
I should have misworded that. Okay, it's
You
not,
did.
okay, when they talk to me, they don't mention money, they mention benefits and what's right and what's wrong. You know, we know the bottom line's always money, don't matter what you do, but it was always the service is what they mentioned. They didn't mention money to me, but here's the money, people, here.
Right. Well,
But-
they may not have known about the 13%. I just heard about the 13% the other
Yeah.
day. So
But
that's
anytime-
possible they didn't know that
Yeah.
not only is the coverage not the same, not only are we not getting the services that we were promised,
Yes.
but we're looking at another 13% increase
Right.
this next time. And we're still making what we were.
It's about both.
So we're losing money constantly.
You're right.
And Ms. George.
And it's very frustrating, especially because I've had to, we, at the clerk's office especially, we've gone through a lot of employee changes. We've had some people retire, we've had some people move, and then trying to get quality employees to take over and offering them really nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, hourly wages that, like I said, you can make at a fast food restaurant.
Ms. George, I couldn't agree more, and I'm hurt by that we have put ourselves in this situation. I think it's not us specifically. I think as a nation we're all fighting the same battle.
Sure.
But I would like to say this. I heard a little rumblings early on about the prescription stuff, but I thought it died down because the past several months I've not heard a word. Mine went up. I talked to a couple of employees who's actually went down a little bit, and so I think the people I talked to was tit for tat. And when we got it ironed out, that I assumed wasn't any longer. And I said earlier that it kind of rolled out in real time. We found out about this like a matter of a day or so before the meeting. So, you know, we all kind of learned about this together. Now, the only thing that I wish that I would like to say to you and the rest of the employees that we have here, I've used my insurance probably more this past year and 18 months because of my kids than I ever have before. But mine has been fine. I'd had no problems, so I was unaware that there was any problems going on insurance-wise, that there was coverage issues, and things like that. And I fault myself for that, for not digging in and asking deeper questions. So my only request from our employees would be, please make sure that those are being heard. And maybe they didn't make it to us, or maybe they didn't make it to the right place. But that's pretty important that we need to know, regardless of what the renewal and premium would be or not be. So I would encourage everyone to please keep that in it. And I'm not saying in a tattletale fashion, or you see us at whatever function we're at, or at the Swamp Cabbage, or at the fair, or on the street, or whatever. Please make sure you reach out to us and say, hey, look, we are having some problems. Please make sure you address that. Otherwise, I would have no way of knowing that.
Right. I think what we would, at least I know in our office, what we were doing is we were taking it all to Miss Butler.
Yeah.
And then she said that, she would bring it to y'all. So we didn't bring it to us personally. We did not come
Sure,
as
sure.
employees to the board, but we did go to.
Okay, and that's the right thing
our
to do,
boss.
and you did right, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think this, what she said, and once again, I'm gonna just say, but I think I want to put a little bit more of a box around it. Ms. Davis, I think you need to, as we move forward with this RFP process, or RFQ, I don't know which one it is actually, I think it's RFP, right? I think that we should tweak it a hair to just make sure that, because there is a cost. Ms. Butler said there's no cost associated with it, doesn't cost a thing, but there is a cost associated with us buying half of our employees for the entire, all of our employees for the half day. And listen, if we think that's ultimately a bad idea, as you talk with the constitutionals, and they don't want to have a discussion with whoever our provider is in a room to say, listen, this sucks, this is working really well. By the way, I don't like you because I had to pay X for Y. We need to hear that stuff. We need to hear that. But I don't think that this board needs to hear it. I think that you all need to hear it with the professionals that are going to fix that, And as those costs increase and that graph shows this, or it shows this or this, then that decision comes to us for us, to say, okay, we got to put something's head in the guillotine and chop it off and let it bleed out. And so as we move forward with that, I would just really encourage us, because I will know my tenure since 2008, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. I have not heard of us having a wellness fair or a benefits fair. If we have, I know that it's not been well attended. So we need to bribe our employees with food and gift cards and other things and have them come and engage that process. But it clearly, with the turnout that we have here right now, obviously there's a tremendous amount of consternation that's being displayed in this room. So I think that you all would, you would have a good turnout for them to go and express their concerns as it relates to these insurance programs.
We do have a health fair every year, and I think it's well received. They do things like cholesterol, blood pressure, and they have different vendors there and so forth. But I think overall we need to take it to the next level of having something that we are engaged in year-round, not every day, but engaged in year-round from an educational perspective and a proactive health perspective going forward. And in the RFP, to your point, they'll all lay out what those wellness programs look like. As far as the timing, unfortunately, and I'm just going to say this, the industry kind of dictates. We asked for the renewal. The last insurance committee meeting we had was in March. At the conclusion of that meeting, I know our insurance broker asked for the renewal for United because we didn't know what it would be. So we would know sooner than later, and that didn't happen. We didn't get it till really late. I know the industry as a whole, a lot of times they kind of play the game, right? And so I know that just last Friday, some renewals were given in another company. I'll just say it that way. And so they do this to where, unfortunately, we came where we were last Tuesday at the last hour. And I know that our insurance broker was working very hard to beat down that number, and we were hoping, that it would come in more affordable, and however it did not. And so that was part of the issue with the timing.
Anyone else on the board?
Mr. Langford made a comment about, Mr. Langford, you said something about if it was an $80,000 cost and it went to $400. Can you clarify what you're?
That is what I heard. I heard that
It's not right.
Blue Cross or whoever you had before, whatever they call it,
CRM.
Yeah.
it was going up 80.
That was last year, 12 months ago.
Right.
Right.
So that
It went out to bids.
Mhm.
But now it's going up 400, and it's not done. That's what I have been told.
savings last year was 86,000 at a 2.2% decrease, going with United over what PRM proposed.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I see what you're saying.
and then this one was a 400,000. Yeah.
The other thing, since you asked something again, I was in the meeting where the man from United said that we would have exactly the same coverage. They would match anything that was done. We have to fight to get our 90 days on prescriptions because they went to 30. But they were going to match our prescription drugs. We're still fighting, I guess, it sounds like, amongst some of our employees to get their drug prices back down to what United was, and they still hadn't got it done. So that's part of the attitude from me is I don't like to be told something and then it doesn't happen. I mean, just right off the bat, we can't get our drugs for 90 days. You have to go to 30. So that's it. Thank you.
There was quite a few issues with that.
I think it went both ways.
And my prescriptions went down, but my dentist went up 3 times as much. Went from $800 a crown to $2,200 a crown. That's a pretty good jump. So, I mean, it's all over the board. Once again, I mean, I'm gonna date myself. When I started here in the late '80s, when I was 15 years old, that was why I come to work for Hendry County. I wasn't here because of the money. I made $5.99 an hour. I came here because
For the
I needed
benefits.
insurance. I had a family. This is something I said in the meeting, and I'll say it again. Without the employees, we don't need to be sitting up here. That's pretty simple. So we need to make sure, and I know I said this and it sounds like it's personal. To me, it is. I worked here for 28 years. I started at the bottom. And that's the only reason I'm sitting here. I could have still been tormenting Alan Bowen, doing where I was at, but I got up here because we need to understand, Hendry County as a whole, we do need to be very diligent on making sure we're spending dollars wisely, because we don't have that many dollars coming in. But we also need to make sure that our employees, at the end of the day, they're taken care of. So that's really, I'm really thankful that I did not know this tool was in the toolboxes. I had no idea. So to be able to sit here tonight and see that we're going to go out to bid, I'm really, really pleased with that. So
I would just like to say on behalf of the clerk's office, and I'm sure on behalf of tax collector, property appraiser, and supervisor of elections, we appreciate what y'all are doing tonight and to try to help us look after our employees and the constituents of this county. And thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. Any further comments? Meeting adjourned.